Welcome back. Let's hop in this. So this is I think this is episode 6. Um yeah, let's just go with that. No, this is episode 5. All right. This one is about me being locked up as a teenager, and I forgot I even went to juvenile detention, which is jail. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that experience and just bring it all together for God's glory because I literally forgot about it, and I was at the writing conferences that I've been attending for the past few years. Shout out to them. And I was writing a poem, and all of these new memories came up about being a teenager, being locked up, being fingerprinted, etc., etc. And I mean, I am 31 now, and even still, some jobs will bring up my 15, 16, 17-year-old records. I think it's like before 17 records for me, but I definitely went to juvenile detention probably like 2 or 3 times. I'm not really going to go into the charges and stuff because it's so unsettling. And also it was very unnecessary. I will say, like, I feel like the 2 or 3 times that I did go was sort of like fighting or something like that. And to me, that's not enough. Like, it wasn't enough to experience what I experienced. And so yeah, let's just hop in it. So I um I feel like I had a way of improperly expressing my emotions and issues, but I also got to see how I wasn't that bad when I got to juvenile detention, right? So the people I ended up meeting were all like orphans or hyper independent already. They were hypersexualized. They had no disregard for authority, highly sensitive, hyper aggressive, super. I mean, it was a lot of perversion going on as well. So I will say that yes, I was able to fit in, but I also was noticing like this is not where I'm supposed to be. If you know, like, um, and I do realize that I was a teenager with a lot of stuff like stored up in me. Like I thought everything was unfair, everybody was out to get me, that type of thing, which was kind of true in my situation, but I needed a better outlet to hate the things that I hated, right? Instead of fighting, instead of going at it with people in charge of me. Like, I think that as a teenager, you think that these are your only ways, like rebellion is your only way, and it's not, right? There are many teenagers who started businesses or who started advocacy programs or who were able to find the help that they needed, who were able to articulate the things that were on their minds and hearts. And because I was a person, teenager, who was not able to articulate it with enough respect to get help, I was harmed way more than I should have been, even in trying to seek help for being harmed. Right. So I got into it with everybody. All the adults, all the teachers, anybody who tried to help me, right? Like I was sort of already like over it. I was over adults, and I got to the point where I was just like, I'm just ready to be grown, right? Like, and so I would also like to add here that the teenagers I met when I was in juvenile, I named a lot of attributes that I saw, but the main thing was we were all put in a situation where we had to be grown before we were grown, right? And the next episode I'm going to deal with being a teenager and dating older men, grown men. There is no other way to put it, right? Dating grown men and the effects that had on me. But that's what I got to witness being in juvenile detention, right? It was girls who, because people didn't know what to really do with us, it was like, okay, y'all are fast, or y'all want to be grown so bad, so here you are. And I think there's better ways to handle teenagers, because I was able to be adopted. Go back and look at that video. And I think that my adoption really helped me um, gain the treatment that I deserved, and like slow walking me through my emotions. And if for nothing else, if I was just adopted to be able to walk myself through my emotions, that helped and saved my whole life at 16. So I go from being in juvenile detention to almost going back to jail to being intercepted and adopted, right, in college and et cetera, et cetera. So I would also like to add that these teenagers who were like, oh, they're just grown or beyond repair or whatever, it's not true. People just don't have the patience or money or resources or housing. People are going through their own thing, so it's easier to just give up on teenagers. So I already said that. I feel like one of the ways that these behaviors can be counteracted, here's some things I listed: godly mentorship, sports, owning businesses. It's not too early to start your own business, art, learning about the world. I did not know about the world, right? I didn't know that there was a system waiting for you to go to jail. I didn't know that black little girls was going to jail. I didn't know that, fill in the blank. So there was a way for me to learn about my world to help me process some of these emotions that I don't feel like I got. Travel, raising money to travel, and ministry. These are some of the ways that I feel could have helped me and can still help teenagers today. Um, I feel like I had no place to put my anger, and this is what I wrote down. I knew God, but really didn't know how to reach Him. I thought everything was an injustice to me. Like, y'all can imagine me as a teenager, okay? I was just like, I'm not going for it. And I mean, everything down to like, why do we have to wear these clothes at school? So it could have been a trauma response of like, nothing else is going to get me, right? I'm already going through enough and I don't want to dress like this. And so nothing else. Or it could have been really like, why can't we be comfortable at school? But there was a way for me to portray that that didn't get me like ostracized, kicked out, in trouble, all the things, right? So, um, yeah, I was an angry teenager. I was a very sad teenager, and I was a very like um I was different because, and you know what? This is the other thing. Being raised in the hood and being around hood politics and all of that, it is very traumatizing. Don't it's not the way anybody was meant to be raised. I don't care if you survived it, it's not the way. It wasn't created by black people for us, or anybody that had to endure the hood, the competition, the beauty requirements, the hypersexuality, the whatever. And the popularity contest, right? So I was a teenager, and by the time I was in ninth grade, I was already done. Like, I was like, I can't take no more of this, right? And so I left public school and I went to a Christian private school. That didn't help because it didn't. Like, it was able to slow my life down, but I didn't learn enough to keep me, like out of the things that were waiting for me. So I also want to add here that we praise teenagers a lot for being mature, but a lot of things that we people recognize as maturity in me was sheer survival. sheer survival. I mean, I had no other choice but to take care of myself in a lot of incidences. So it was like I was being praised for that instead of somebody being like, that's not, you need to be enjoying your youth, you know? They were like, oh my gosh, she's so mature. And that came with people putting more stuff on me, whether it was babysitting, whether it was resolving their issues, whether it was asking for money, whether it was just putting me in adult situations that it wasn't proper, right? So I think that we have to do a better job at recognizing the signs of hyper independence as trauma, not as maturity. I don't care. Like, and even some men will be like, oh, she seems grown for her age or mature for, she's not. She's not. So don't use that as a way to like gain romantic interest, or you know what I mean? I said I'll deal with that next video, so I'll do that. Um so and then survival ended up being more about scamming and like scheming versus maturing and understanding my gifts, talents, purpose, God, politics, money, savings, financial, this, that, and the third, natural hair. It just ended up being, how can I get the next need met in my own strength, which is, it's against God, right? Like I wish I had the tools as a teenager to completely depend on God, because it would have taken me in a whole different route. Um and I also added that survival teaches you more about scamming and control than surrender and preparation. Sorry if my computer is slowing down. It hate when I start telling the truth. So just please stick it out. Thank you all for sticking it out. When was that? Saturday. So we're almost done. And then survival also helps you create your own reality and your own sort of like bubble, which it can be helpful in terms of safety, but in terms of dealing with real life issues, growing up, maturing, um, and being able to like adjust as things come, I don't know if it's as helpful, right? Like my the walls I put up to protect myself ended up doing way more damage than protecting. So let's get to some fun stuff. So, if you are a teen struggling, this video is for you. If you were a struggling teen, or if you're helping a struggling teen, this is all for you. So, one of the things I want to mention is that I also felt the glory, the power, and I felt the bigness of God very early in my life, even as a teenager. But I don't know if I had a place to really take it to, right? Because while I was feeling God, I also felt hormones, anger, all the things. And I didn't really know how to give myself over to God, or that feeling or that emotion, or like really question it. So I want to talk about teenagers who are feeling like God is calling them. He is. So I want to say that Jeremiah, please read Jeremiah, all of it, but Jeremiah 1 and 6, when God called Jeremiah, he was like, look, I'm a youth, so take it somewhere else. Okay. And I think that's very like telling, because God calling us and us answering is so anti-cultural, because the culture tell you got time, YOLO, do you? And there is a portion of the Bible that does say that. In Ecclesiastes 11, 9 through 10, it says you're young, enjoy your youth, but it also warns you that you will still be judged, right? So it's better, these are my words now, it's better to live your youth for Christ than to like be all YOLO and out here and then still have to be judged for being ratchet, right? It's some things that I'm still being judged for that I did as a teenager and as a child. So the cultural part of this is to answer the call and submit to what God is saying, which is what Jeremiah ended up doing, right? But he had some feedback for God first. Like, I don't know how to speak. I don't, me, and yes, you. Yes, me. Yes, Jeremiah. Also, David, and you can also read this in Samuel, I think it's First Samuel. No, yeah, Samuel 17:42. Um, David, this is I think when David was fighting Goliath, and they were like, this young, handsome, they describe him as young and handsome, like, and David was prepared, right? Because of what he already had gone through. There are things, this is how God uses it all for your good. There are some things that I was prepared for because I was locked up as a teenager. First of all, I ain't going back to jail no time and never again soon, okay? Unless it's like for the glory of God, preaching on YouTube, whatever, whatever. But I learned to navigate and stay out of trouble. I'm going to tell you that. But also, I learned discipline. I learned respect for authority. I learned God's voice. I learned how to pray. Even if I wasn't around the correct adults, like what I knew in my head, my spirit, and my gut, I knew. Even if I did follow the directions of the adults instead of the voice of God, I experienced the consequences, even as a teenager. So there were things that God came and showed me and said to me and dealt with me about in that cell. And I remember that cell as a teenager. And my cellmates were, we're not going to even get into that. So, yeah, I just want to say that there are two examples already: Jeremiah, David, young, called, and they had to commit to the calling. They didn't have to, but they did. And it changed the trajectory of their lives and the people lives around them. So, also, I would like to say Joseph. Joseph was 17 when he shared the two prophetic dreams. And that's in Genesis 30. No, sorry. Yes, that's in Genesis 37:2. And we know what happened to Joseph, right? His siblings were like, who, who you think, who, who's gonna bow down to you? Who you think you are? And they put him in enslavement. But Joseph was 17. What were you doing at 17? What do you wish you would have done at 17? Right? So I want to, so Joseph, Jeremiah, David, all young. And then I would also like to say that this one is my favorite. We always talk about how Jesus fed the 5,000 people with the 5 loaves of bread and 2 pieces of fish. But where did he get it from? He got it from a young boy. And I know it seems like I'm only using boys. So let me add in Mary. More than likely, Mary was a teenage mother to Jesus, according to those cultural and traditions back then. And be it unto me. That's what Mary said. Okay, I I, I got to carry the Savior. Cool. Right? So it's not just, I don't want us to get caught up in gender. I'm just using these as like clear examples. So, girls, y'all are called to. I, so yeah, in John 6:1 through 14, just read the whole book of John or just read the whole chapter of John 6. But this boy, they described it as a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. That is what Jesus was able to multiply and feed over 5,000 people. Who told this boy to give that to Jesus, right? Where did he get that inclination? But it allowed it allowed Jesus to perform a miracle, to feed and to have leftovers. This came from a boy. And so, if you are helping teenagers, I want you to also realize that your role is to help them hear the voice of God. And this is a perfect example. Also in Samuel 3 says that Samuel was a boy and thought he was being called by Eli, right? Yeah, I want to say Eli. I don't want to click out of this because it's already acting slow. Um, but Eli, thank you, Lord. Yes, Eli was so Samuel heard his name being called. He takes it to his teacher Eli and like, "What's up? You're calling me." Samuel is also described as a boy, young, youth. Eli's like, I didn't call you. Chill out. He goes back to Eli and say, you call me. I'm here. He does that 3 times and Eli finally tells him, when you hear that voice again, let God know that you're here. You're listening to instruct you. And that's what happened. And God gave Samuel instructions. So as you're helping teenagers, help them depend on God's voice more than they try to depend on your voice. And this is what I will say. You can be hearing the voice of God and confuse it with other people's, but the right teachers, and I pray that we get the right teachers to disciple teenagers, the right teacher will lead you back to God. The right teacher will have you learn how to listen to the voice of God over their voice. And that is what this journey is about, right? Because you need to hear God's voice in order to learn obedience, in order to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And there are so many traps laid up for teenagers and youth who are hearing the voice of God, are leaders, are called out, and there are cults, there are organizations, there are people, there are things that want to get their strength and their courage and their abilities to use it for their own will and not the will of God. And a lot of that happened to me. I mean, I was mixed up in all type of stuff, right? Like fighting for this organization, helping out this, da 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 da, because people were seeing what God had put in me or what I was trained to do. But my training, right, just like David's training, was to be put to work for the kingdom, not to be put to work for you name it, insert the whatever. But whatever training, whether or not you were a teenager who spent time in jail, whether or not you were a teenager who spent time with the wrong family, whatever training God has equipped you with, and now it's calling you, answer the calling because you're already equipped. And I will say that there's a lot of things that I was already equipped for. Even traveling, right? I've been to Peru, Ecuador, West Africa, Canada, all of these places. And I know how to live in such a way that people wouldn't even understand, right? Like so minimalistic because sometimes God will have you go to those places. I know how to live lavish, okay? Pray that all my debt be erased in Jesus' name. But I'm seeing where these were preparations from God for his kingdom. So I would also like to add that here are some of the characteristics, attributes that I've seen from myself and from other teens that had to experience juvenile detention or just severe mistreatment, that God can reverse and will reverse. So it's like you're disciplined, but you're very rigid, which you can be disciplined, but there are some times where God will step in and change your whole routine. Knowledgeable, but unable to apply it to self. So these are things where you may think that, okay, I survived, I know how to do things, da 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 da, but you haven't matured, right? So that's these are the things I'm touching on. Sensitive but serious, right? Like nobody bet not get me wrong. Adaptable but avoid real change. Independent but easily fall into being saved by others. Smart but lack skills for career, life, and relationships. Structured but selfish and unyielding. Friendly but lack real community, or the community is a perverse community. Organized but lack starting and completing. Self improved but proves it to the wrong people instead of proving it to God and self. Empathetic but plays God in the lives of others. And emotionally protected, have these walls built. And so I pray against all of those things that come with being severely institutionalized and not washed of those things through Christ. I also want to leave by adding, what is God calling you to do, even in your youth? And what is He calling the teens around you to do? And how can you support them? I hope this video made sense. Yeah. Again, I love my journal. This is from my homegirl Vishalice for Christmas / my birthday, because that's the same thing for me. Um, yeah, I hope y'all understood, and I'm praying for healing for teenagers and the people who are working with teenagers. We are in a severe need. I have a book out. I will put the link below. This book is for teenage boys. I am in the process of making one for girls as well. And it's called Journal Daily. So it is 99 plus prompts to help teenage boys process emotions, strengthen their relationship with God, talk through some of the things that they may not be able to talk through with anyone else, and to plan whatever it is that is going on in their head where they feeling like, is this God voice or my voice? So I hope you all can get the book or share it. I'm also available for speaking engagements as well when it comes to teen boys or teenagers in general. So yeah, I will see you all in my comments, and I will put my email below as well. And I will see you in the next episode where I will be talking about um, being a teenager and the perversion that came with adult men being attracted to me.